From the Center for the Study and Teaching of Writing at The Ohio State University, this is Writers Talk. I'm Doug Dangler. Tom Gammill has been a writer on Seinfeld, The Critic, The Wonder Years, and its Gary Shandling Show, in addition to Saturday Night Live in 1979. With his writing partner, Max Pross, he won an Emmy Award for Outstanding Animated Program in 2001 for an episode of The Simpsons. He's also made a number of YouTube videos about the difficult life of being a cartoonist. So welcome, Tom Gammill.
Thanks. Yeah, you can see those YouTube videos by just typing in Tom Gammill on YouTube.
G-A-M-M-I-L-L. See, I know even how to spell the guest's name. I'm way ahead of it.
So far, this is going great.
Yeah, so far. Let's stop now. Tell me, how did you get into comedy writing? Were you the class clown? How did this start off?
No, I was definitely the class nerd, and I started off definitely in junior high and high school drawing cartoons. And I really thought I was going to be a cartoonist, and I went to college. I went to Harvard, and I got onto the Harvard Lampoon as a cartoonist. But then once I was there were a lot of equally nerdy people who were funny, and we just kind of taught ourselves how to be writers. And I didn't want to go back to my room and draw cartoons, so I kind of fell in with this group of people who went on to be TV writers.
Okay.
And so without realizing it, just in the 4 years of hanging out with these people and cracking jokes and trying to get stuff in the magazine, we kind of sort of taught ourselves what being a TV writer ended up being.
Okay.
So this is back in I graduated in '79, so this is back, the TV landscape was a lot different back then.
All right, tell me how you taught yourself. What were the rules that you invented along the way, or the ways that you figured out how to be funny?
Well, no, I mean, to be a TV writer, it's very social. You've got to learn how to talk to the actors about how to do the joke, and you've got to get along with other writers. For example, on the Simpsons, there's up to 10 writers in the room with you when you're working on a script. So you got to learn, when to pitch stuff and when to keep your mouth shut, and if they don't like your joke, you can't be too whiny. You can't keep pitching it, and so you got to be funny and not too obnoxious. You can't be in stand-up mode where you're jumping around, because that makes people nervous after a while.
Okay.
I mean, most TV writers are generally pretty nerdy, but I've noticed they have slightly better social skills than cartoonists, because cartoonists just have to sit by themselves in their room. Whereas a TV writer, you got to actually talk to other people during the day. Okay,
but that's worked out well for you, talking to other people during the day.
Yeah, so far. But now as I got older, now that I'm over 50, I don't mind being by myself all day. So I enjoy being a cartoonist more than a TV writer.
And you show that in the YouTube videos that you've got, where you show your studio. You spill paint, you spill ink on yourself,
right,
and things like that.
Yeah, actually, it's funny. The original idea for the bumbling cartoonist, my writing partner Max Pross and I wrote those originally for Letterman back in the early 80s, but he didn't want to play a character. But and then 25 years went by, and it's like, hey, I'm the age of that bumbling cartoonist, and I've got kids who can pretend to hate me, and so I cast my kids in the thing, and so now I'm playing the part originally written for Dave Letterman in 1982.
Okay, and on one of them, you're trying to find a partner to sit next to you or sit at your table.
At the Reuben Awards, yeah.
Right.
This is the National Cartoonist Society annual award ceremony. I was a host last year, and this was sort of a video to introduce me. And the premise was I couldn't find anyone to sit next to me at the awards, so they let me host.
And you go to what I thought was the interesting thing and the funny thing about it is you keep going to different people, and obviously they turn you down, but the acting quality varies wildly among the cartoonists. So when you talk about people being able to talk to other people, I get what you're saying about the cartoonists. Some of them seem really uncomfortable to be online. How did you work that out with them? How did you convince all of them to do it? Or did they jump at the chance because they said somebody else will be here?
Yeah, that pretty much. Like the original summer party scene. In fact, you could put this in your show if you want. You can actually show clips of it. Was at Kathy Geiswhite's house. Kathy Geiswhite, who's drawn Kathy for 30 years and recently retired, and because Kathy was willing to do it, we got some of those other cartoonists on board and cartoonist wives.
Well, I happened to have seen this recently. And I was watching, also read Pearls Before Swine.
Oh, yeah.
And the guy from Pearls
Stephen Pastis
is in it. And he's a peeping Tom.
Yes, he gets yelled at by Jeannie Schultz.
Right, and she leads him off by the ear. And I thought, well, my daughter's a big fan of Pearls Before Swine. I'd show it to her, but then I would have to explain the peeping Tom references and all that stuff. So it's not safe for work, really. Don't.
I don't know, it felt like a Little Rascals thing. You can show your kids Little Rascals. It's just a guy looking in a window. It's not like we cut to like girls in their underwear or anything.
No, no. So you.
But I thought Jeannie Schultz was a great actress. I thought she did a great job of yelling at Stefan, and she's actually here at the festival. And I said, "You did a good job," and she said, "Well, Stefan's very easy to yell at."
Good, good. I wondered about that.
Yeah.
So you've written frequently with Max Pross.
Yeah.
How do you write comedy? You talked about writing in a room of people. How do you write comedy, just the two of you? When you sit down, you just throwing jokes back and forth, setting up a premise?
Yeah,
what's your process?
It's different. It's funny because we met in college, and neither one of us thought we would be TV writers. He was going to medical school, and I actually got a job as a writer at Hallmark Cards. I applied as an artist, and they hired me as a writer because I'm a crappy artist. But and then out of the blue, this guy Jim Downey, who's still at Saturday Night Live, called us and said, "Hey, I've read your stuff in the Lampoon. Why don't you get a packet together and submit it to Saturday Night Live?" We had no idea how to get into TV at that point. And so just from being on the magazine and working together for 3.5 years, you know, we knew how to write some funny sketches, and we submitted it. So we kind of got on Saturday Night Live as a fluke. You know, we didn't start out at college. My goal is to get on Saturday Night Live. And I mean, we're talking about advice for people trying to break into TV now. It's different because just like the YouTube videos, you know, now you can get a camera and you can pretty easily edit stuff yourself. I would definitely recommend if anyone wants to get into TV, get out there and shoot stuff on your own. You know, find your friends as to be the actors and write to the strengths of your friends. That's sort of like what we do with the Learn to Draw videos. You know, I can play a 50-year-old dim-witted cartoonist, so I cast myself. It's easier for me to play it than to try to describe it to somebody else. And then we write stuff around who we can get. And I think that's the best advice. We certainly didn't have that opportunity 30 years ago. You know, I mean, when I was at Saturday Night Live to do a 3-minute film, you needed like a crew of 10 people in 2 weeks and $40,000 or whatever. Now you can do it in your afternoon for free, basically.
Okay.
So I would say definitely, you know, especially like sketches, get out there, find friends, shoot the stuff yourself, because so much of being a writer, especially with live action, is communicating with the actors, and cut it together and get it on YouTube. You know, another way is it's funny because my son is at NYU now and wants to be a comedy writer, and
he didn't learn from the mistakes.
No, it's funny. Growing up, he thought I was he thought I was a real loser, and he wanted to be the soul and rock and roll guy. But now that he's in college, it's like, oh, now he wants to be a comedy writer. But one thing he does is he tweets like a couple of times a week, and that's a good writing exercise too. You know, even if you have just an audience of 3 or 4 people, if you do that a couple of times a week, I think Twitter is going to kill comic strips. It's another thing that's going to kill comic strips.
Really?
Yeah, because it's just a fast way to get a funny idea, and you don't have to look at pictures.
Okay. Well, tell me about moving from being a writer to a producer. You've gone to be the producer for The Simpsons and Futurama, things like that. You said when we were talking beforehand, it's a glorified writer.
Yes, yeah. The producer credit, like if you watch the opening of The Simpsons, it goes for, it seems like hours, lots of different producers. And basically all of those are writers on the show. And then like 2 or 3 of them actually do the production stuff.
So what is it that you do that got you the producer title that's different from the other writers? You just corral them together and say, produce something. I mean, what is that? Why did they give you that title?
It's a glorified name for a writer. It really is.
You're just going to stick to that one.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to think. It's like, because I've been labeled a producer for a long time, like on the old Gary Shandling show on Showtime. In lieu of giving you more money, they give you a title.
Oh, okay.
And so that's it. It's also a way to get your name on the show every week, even if you didn't write the actual script. Because on The Simpsons, you know, there's like 1 or 2 people who get the written by credit every week. But every week, you know, that script has gone through, 20 writers or so.
So it doesn't matter if your particular line or gag ended up in that. What determines who gets credit for it then?
Oh, the person who writes the first draft.
Okay.
Yeah.
So even though other people are socially contributing to it, it depends on who sits down to write the first draft.
And there's when I was on Seinfeld, there are scripts that say written by Tom Gammill and Max Pross, where by the time we got on the air, Larry David and Jerry Seinfeld had written the bulk of it. But because we had written the first draft, things are changing now though in TV, as it's more like written/reality. Like a Larry David show, Curb Your Enthusiasm, they don't have like a literal script. He basically has an outline, a carefully thought out outline, and he knows what's going to happen in every scene. and there's a little improv going there. The Judd Apatow movies are like that too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a much more realistic way to do comedy, and in the long run, it's better.
So you're a fan of those?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, going back to we're talking about the Learn to Draw videos, like everybody knows them, but those are where there's not really a script. It's like in this scene, I'm going to talk and someone's going to throw a milkshake at me. You know, we sort of do it scene by scene.
If I'd known that you were up for that, we would have brought milkshakes in, and I'm sorry that I didn't get that. You've also co-written with comedy legends like Eric Idle and Dan Aykroyd and Lorne Michaels.
Well, no, that's I was on Saturday Night Live the years that that year that they were on the show. So yeah, I mean, yeah, Lorne Michaels.
So you haven't co-written with anybody.
No,
this
I
is
mean,
a complete lie.
Yeah.
Okay.
But where was that? Was that on?
It was online.
No.
You know, I don't want to say Wikipedia.
Yeah.
That might have been where it is.
No, Lorne Michaels was my first boss, and he's a really great first boss. I mean, that was my first job right out of college. It was 1979, 80. You know, Saturday Night Live was in its 5th season, and everyone thought the show was about to wrap up at that point. And it was so different then, because, you know, like Budweiser was a sponsor, so there was actually like Budweiser beer in all the refrigerators, and like people were like, they'd start meetings and people would be smoking joints and stuff, and it was crazy, and that really kind of screwed me up, like what a job should be. You know, there were like 22 shows a year, so you only came in 22 weeks. The shows that there wasn't a show, nobody came in. And so then my next job was at Letterman, and it's like, what? You can't drink beer? This is bull. You know, this is like working at a bank. Oh, so can you say?
Well, you've said it twice, so yeah, you can now.
so that was Saturday Night Live as your first job out of college really screws you up about what a job is like. Because also there'd be a big party. Like my first week in show business, I meet like Steve Martin and Bill Murray, and then we're driving around in limos and going to parties and. Then coming in Monday and drinking beer. It was.
I think you've made the best argument for being a writer that anybody has made on Writers Talk.
But, by the way, I really don't think Saturday Night Live works that way anymore. Okay. I don't know, but.
Well, Lorne Michaels has certainly. He's not as young as he used to be. No. He may not be doing these things anymore. I don't know if you're suggesting.
But I think the show's still great. I think it's. I mean, Kristen Wiig. She's as funny as anyone who's ever been on now. You know, I got to think probably the process is the same, but. Probably it's a little more business-like than it was, because they have so much more competition now. Because you know you've got like Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert. There's so many more people doing that kind of comedy now.
So who you've mentioned Jon Stewart, Stephen Colbert, Saturday Night Live. Who are the really big names that you're looking to now, or who do you think is coming up that's really going to change comedy writing? Judd Apatow.
Yeah, no, Judd Apatow is great. I don't think there's anyone funnier on this planet than Kristen Wiig. I think she's great.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that the current cast of, I know it's cool to go like, oh, you know, it's not as funny as it used to be, but man, I think Saturday Night Live is now as funny as it's ever been.
Okay.
And who else is funny? You know, yeah, Stephen Colbert and Jon Stewart. You know, and then my kids will tell me people, you know, just who I find on the internet and stuff. You know, the whitest kids you know, and. And there's just so many great places to find comedy now, thanks to the YouTubes.
But has it? And now let's talk about you went from doing more writing back to what is now, I understand, is your roots in cartooning. And you've gone online to GoComics.com and you're writing The Doozies, which is like a 3-panel strip, and leads to you being here at the Billy Ireland Festival. So tell me about switching back to something like that. How did that change your process? Obviously, you've said a couple times you're alone now when you're writing this, except for the times when there are cameras in there filming you.
Right.
How long does it take you to come up with a cartoon? How much time do you spend in it? What's your process per day? Walk me through a day.
Well, I should probably walk you through how I started doing the comic strip, because it was during the Writers Guild strike, and all the writers would meet early in the morning, and we'd picket for 3 hours, and it was great. We'd lose weight, and it was kind of healthy, and then we didn't know what to do, so Max and I would meet and say, let's do something for YouTube, because we could do that without breaking any Writers Guild rules. So then we said, hey, what about that Letterman sketch we did in 1982? I could play that guy. So they said, yeah, let's do something about a hapless cartoonist. And then it's like, well, hey, I should come up with an actual comic strip, because I've always loved comic strips. And so I said, rather than just the premise being that the comic strip is lame, it's like my feeling was I'm going to make the comic strip the best I can. and still a lot of people think it's still lame, but at least it'll be much more believable that I think it's great, and it is pretty good. Go to cocomics.com and see the doozies. Where am I getting to your point? So you asked about the daily process.
Yeah, what's your daily process?
Yeah, okay. So the daily process is basically 3 panels, and I think a lot of ideas while sitting in traffic.
It's a good thing you live in LA, right?
Yeah, I live in LA,
it's a good thing you live
in a lot of traffic. Yeah, and usually when I can't think of more than 2 ideas at a time, because then my brain goes like, you've got 2 ideas to draw, draw those, and then we'll think of some more ideas. So, thanks to being online, I have I can draw a cartoon up until 8:30 the night before, so I can do some topical stuff, and but the comic strip, The Doozies, is basically a throwback where once there's a punchline, it can actually cause people to like have their hats fly off or jump out of the frame and stuff. So, stuff that you can't do in real life.
Okay. What's been your favorite experience on that one? Is there a cartoon that you really thought nailed the essence of the show? I'm sorry, of the strip.
Of the strip. Let's see.
What's the one you pulled out when people visit and force them?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I did one. Well, it's really, you got to show it. It's hard to explain, but basically, there's a guy with a sign that says "We'll work for food," and then the car comes up and says "Hop in," and then they drive to this mansion, and then there's this roast turkey saying "Type this up." It's holding a piece of paper. He's literally working for food.
Okay. So, I get it. Okay.
There's another hilarious one about a lamp store, but you got to see it. I'll explain it. Okay, a guy's working at a lamp store. He goes, "What a day." And then he's going outside in the parking lot, now to go home and relax. And he's at home, and his wife says, "Dear, can you switch on that lamp?" And he goes, "It never ends." See, it's not perfect telling it, but if you saw it in writing, it's pretty funny.
Okay. Tell me about the when you're doing that, you have a different kind of approach to that, because you don't get to develop characters as much, right? Because it's the panel gag.
Right.
Whereas on something like not necessarily Seinfeld, but
I'll tell you about Seinfeld, because Larry David and Jerry Seinfeld ran the show, and they were great showrunners. And you would go in there basically with sort of germs of ideas, like Kramer installs a air conditioner and it falls out of the window. They would like that premise. And a lot of times you'd go in and you'd give them a bunch of premises and they wouldn't respond. And then at lunch you'd mention something that really happened to you that really ticked you off. Like, I bought a car because a used car salesman said it belonged to John Voight, and it really ticked me off. And they say, well, write about that. That's what we want. Or we talked about, like, during the go-go 80s when Max and I weren't working, we went to visit our friend who was on Wall Street and all pompous. And for dessert, he took a Snickers bar and he was eating it with a knife and fork. And it made us really furious. And
it made you furious?
Yeah, just like, what a jackass, It's like, eat it with your fingers, And so we mentioned that just in conversation. Larry and Joy laughed and said, we'll do that, So they really were looking for real life events that you didn't think were funny at the time, but pissed you off. One time Jerry came back, he had been on tour, and he said, like, my assistant, before I went out on stage, said, I don't want you to freak out, but the pilot is sitting in the audience for the show, so don't freak out. And he was like, why would I freak out? Why would I freak out? Why do I care if the pilot's in the audience? So then the next day we pitched him an idea where his assistant said that, and he sees the pilot in the audience.
The pilot for the plane that he okay.
And he freaks out, and he loved it. And there's an interesting story about that, the guy who played the pilot. We were sitting around, and for some reason the guy who was playing the pilot didn't show up. He said, who are we going to get? And suddenly the Arrowhead water, do you have Arrowhead water here in Ohio?
No.
It's like bottled water. The Arrowhead water guy walked in and he looked just like a pilot. And he said, hey, would you put on this uniform and be in the show? And so he was in the show, he didn't have any lines, and the next day he quit his job at Arrowhead Water and has tried to become an actor.
How's that worked out for him?
He hasn't had a job since.
Okay, good. I'm glad to see that you're really helping out the people that are working on the show.
Maybe he has a job by now.
Tell me about the Billy Ireland Festival of Cartoon
Art.
The
Billy Ireland Festival.
It's
great.
What goes on there? It happens every 3 years.
Every 3 years. This is my first year here.
Okay.
And I'm actually interviewing my boss, Matt Granding, on Saturday night. Okay. And we brought some great clips for some stuff that hasn't been on the show yet. And we have a compilation clip of all the cartoon and comic strip references, or not all of them, but a lot of them that have been on The Simpsons. Because it's a very, the audience is going to have a lot of cartoonists, a lot of big names here. And so it's really exciting. It's fun to hang out with other cartoonists too, and it's like Jeff Keane, who draws Family Circus, You know, it's like I just saw him this morning. That's
Really?
right, I saw Jeff Keane.
Okay.
And
what do you talk
who
about?
knows?
What do you talk about at a thing like this? What's the shop talk for cartoonists as opposed to comedy writers who are smoking marijuana, drinking beer in the morning?
Well, no,
things like
that was back in the 70s.
Okay,
I don't know. The writing staff at the Simpsons is very sober. There's no partying or anything.
Okay.
Everybody has families and stuff. In fact, I can tell you, 10 years ago I worked on Futurama when that started, and at the time nobody there had wives or girlfriends, so they were happy to stay there till 3 in the morning, like doing math problems, just entertaining themselves. And now,
I'm sorry, did you say doing math problems?
Yeah. It was the most overeducated writing stuff when Futurama started, and then it was down for a few years. Now they're back, and now they all have families. So now they don't stay till 3 in the morning doing math problems. They want to go home.
Well, I've noticed a stunning lack of math problems in Futurama.
What's cool about Futurama, you can freeze frame on math problems, and they're actually like solvable math problems.
Okay.
They teach Futurama at some colleges, not very good colleges, but.
So not at OSU.
Yeah.
That's maybe U of M.
Yeah. So hanging out with cartoonists, I'm still so amazed. Like when I meet cartoonists, it's just like, wow, I'm having a beer with Jeff Keane, the guy, the inspiration for Jeffy from Family Circus.
Yeah. Okay. Because it's Bill Keane. It was his dad who wrote it. Is he still writing it?
No, but Jeff has pretty much taken over the thing. Yeah.
Because I've noticed that these comic strip dynasties.
There's
Haggard
a lot
the
of
Horrible was the same way. It went from Chris to Dick Brown or the other way around.
And Beetle Bailey, Mort Walker, and Brian Walker, who's going to be here. Patrick McDonald, the guy who draws Mutts, is going to be here.
Okay.
Art Spiegelman. So
this is the destiny of your son. You said he wanted to be a cartoonist.
No, he wants to be a TV writer.
Oh, TV writer. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. But that's what you should push him towards.
Right.
So he could.
Because
there are no dynasties of comedy writers.
There are actually some. Yeah, there's a guy, Jay Kogan, whose dad is Arnie Kogan, who wrote for Mad, and Jay is a really funny writer. He was on The Simpsons at the beginning.
Okay.
So there are some father and son comedy.
So when you do get together at something like this, what do you talk about? Do you talk about the state of comics, or the state of publishing? How in depth do you get? Or are you just exchanging stories about family?
You know, I haven't. This is like sort of my first year involved in this, so I'm not sure what we talk about. It's basically it's just been drinking beer and not really talking about the state of comics. I think everyone thinks it's going towards the internet. You know, I mean, newspapers are dying, but how do you make a living? Yeah, I guess there's some of that.
Okay.
But you know, they've been talking like that since the 70s. You know, when the Saturday Evening Post went out and started review and all those stuff. You know, so it's going to go on. It's pretty exciting now. I mean, there's a lot of funny comic strips out there online.
Okay. How is being a cartoonist different from being a comedy writer?
Well, it's like being a cartoonist. It's very solitary. You're just there by yourself.
Right.
Which, you know, when I was younger, I liked the social aspect of being a TV writer. Now I like the solitary. Plus, you know, as a TV writer, if something screws up, you can go like, the actor screwed it up, or the director screwed it up. When the comic strip screws up, if people don't think it's funny, it's like you can't say like, the cartoon character.
You can blame it on the ink or the transfer.
Right.
You know,
you can't really blame it on the ink. So, but it gives you. You know, it's something you can do all by yourself. I mean, one thing that's amazing about Matt Groening, who I'm interviewing on Saturday, you know, he's got these 2 great TV shows, yet for 30 years he's still been doing his weekly comic strip, Life in Hell. And I think he just enjoys the fact that he does it all by himself and doesn't have to listen to other people. I mean, TV and movie writing, it's a big collaborative thing. I mean, it used to be when you're in college, you watch something and go like, that was okay. Now I'm just amazed when I see something on TV that's halfway funny, because you know how many ways it can get screwed up. It's like, so, you know, if you really care about your work, you know, I don't want anyone to mess with it. You don't want to be a TV or movie writer. You can do a comic strip or write a play or something. Okay.
Last question. What is the Gammill and Pross infant acuity test?
That was in Ghostbusters 2, and I think what happened was it was a scene with Dan Aykroyd and Bill Murray. And I think they were sitting around going, we should give this some kind of official name. And I bet Bill Murray said, let's do Gammill and Pross, because he was like one of the first people we met in show business. And I haven't seen him in 30 years, but every once in a while something like that pops up where I know.
But you're not getting residuals or trademark money from it.
Yes, from the acuity test, absolutely. Okay. Yeah, we've helped a lot of babies. Thanks to our acuity test.
All right. Well, I thank you very much.
Hey, thank you. This was fun.
Being here. The comic strip again. You can go to GoComics.
It's called The Doozies. Called The Doozies. And go to YouTube and just type in Tom Gammill.
All right. Well, thanks very much.
Hey, thank you.
And from the Center for the Study and Teaching of Writing at The Ohio State University, this is Doug Dangler saying, keep writing.